The small Louisiana town of Brooksville was the kind of place where everybody knew each other's secrets, but no one dared to speak them out loud. The Spanish moss hung heavy on the oak trees, and the air carried the thick, sweet scent of magnolias mixed with the bitterness of old grudges. At the center of it all stood the Jackson estate, a sprawling mansion that loomed over the town like a reminder of who truly held power. Deborah Jackson, the matriarch of the Jackson family, was feared as much as she was respected. Her late husband had left her with money, land, and influence, and she had wielded them like weapons. With sharp green eyes and a smile that never reached them, Deborah could make or break a family with a few whispered words at Sunday service. Many in Brooksville hated her dominance, but no one dared cross her openly. Jamal Carter worked the grounds of the estate, trimming hedges, fixing fences, and doing whatever odd jobs Deborah demanded. He was young, strong, and carried himself with quiet dignity. But being a black man working for a white family in Brooksville came with unspoken dangers. People whispered about him behind his back, especially because Deborah seemed to take a strange interest in him. She often summoned Jamal for chores that didn't seem necessary, lingering too long when giving instructions, speaking to him in ways that blurred the lines between employer and something else. Sheriff Thomas Walker had noticed, a man in his 50s, with a gut hardened by whiskey and fried food. Walker had lived his whole life in Brooksville. He distrusted change, distrusted ambition, and especially distrusted young black men who didn't know their place, as he liked to put it. When rumors about Deborah and Jamal reached his ears, he tucked them away like bullets in his revolver, waiting for the moment to use them. Aaron Dupree, a slick businessman from Baton Rouge, had been circling the Jackson estates like a hawk. He wanted the land, wanted Deborah's endorsement for his expansion plans. He arrived often, driving his shiny Cadillac up the gravel road, pretending courtesy, but oozing ambition. Deborah wasn't blind. She knew he only respected her money. Yet she entertained his visits, partly for her amusement, partly to see just how far his greed would go. And then there was Ayanna Turner, a woman who had grown up in Brooksville, but left for college and returned years later with sharper eyes and heavier regrets. She worked as a nurse in town, and though she kept her distance from Deborah, she often crossed paths with Jamal. She noticed how exhausted he looked, how trapped he seemed working for the Jacksons, and she felt drawn to him despite knowing the risk. One humid night in late July, the estate was quieter than usual. Jamal stayed late, repairing a broken gate near the barn. The cicadas screamed in the trees, and thunder rolled in the distance. Deborah called him inside, her voice sharp and commanding as always. He wiped sweat from his brow, hesitated, then stepped into the great hall. Deborah stood there in her silk robe, a glass of bourbon in her hand. She spoke to him in low tones, her words half suggestion, half demand. Jamal shifted uncomfortably, trying to keep the conversation professional, but Deborah's intentions were clear. Before he could excuse himself, a door slammed upstairs. Someone else was in the house. The next morning, Brooksville woke to a scandal that shook the town to its roots. Deborah Jackson was found dead in her study. Her body collapsed across the mahogany desk. The cause was blunt force trauma, her head bashed in with the heavy crystal decanter that normally sat on her liquor tray. The news spread like wildfire. By noon, whispers turned into accusations, and Sheriff Walker already had his mind made up. Jamal Carter had been the last one seen with her, and to Walker, that was enough. He dragged Jamal from his small apartment on the edge of town, handcuffs biting into his wrists, ignoring Jamal's protests of innocence. But not everyone believed it was that simple. Ayanna, who had spoken to Jamal just 2 days earlier, felt a deep wrongness in the way the sheriff rushed to judgment. She knew Jamal wasn't perfect, but she also knew the weight of Deborah's reputation, the enemies she had made. To many people had motives Aaron with his business schemes, townsfolk she had humiliated, even members of her own estranged family. Still, the sheriff paraded Jamal through town, satisfied with the spectacle. At the station, he leaned back in his chair and told Jamal to confess, but Jamal refused. He stared back with steady eyes, insisting he hadn't killed Deborah, insisting he had left the mansion while she was still alive. Outside, Brooksville buzzed with gossip. In the diner, in the church pews, at the bar, people argued. Some said Jamal must have snapped under Deborah's control. Others claimed they'd seen Aaron Dupree sneaking out of the estate the night she died. A few even whispered that Deborah had been haunted, cursed by her own cruelty. As night fell over Brooksville again, the mystery only deepened, and for Jamal, locked in a cell with the sheriff's eyes burning into him, it felt like the walls were closing in. He didn't know who had killed Deborah Jackson, but he knew if the truth didn't come out soon, he'd be the one buried for it.